So is this a new era for the Springboks? Exciting times lie ahead, no doubt, for the back-to-back world champions. But yesterday, they announced their coaching changes. And there's continuity there, but some significant changes as well. So welcome back to the channel. Something a little different for you today, away from all of the focus on the Six Nations. Springboks yesterday, as I say, announcing their coaching structure for the years ahead. So that's what I'm going to get into in this video. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Alfie. Appreciate you being here. If I haven't earned your subscription by now, then I would love it if by the end of this video you hit subscribe, like the video as well, and comment, what do you make of these coaching changes? Two big departures for the Springboks. Obviously, Jacques Nienaber and Felix Jones have departed. Nienaber has gone to Leinster. Felix Jones is now one of the assistant coaches with England. And I suppose the two big appointments in their place is Gerry Flannery, who's taking charge of the defence, and Tony Brown, who is coming in to take charge of the attack. And on paper, I think this coaching team that the Springboks have put forward, I mean, it looks really good. It looks like a great mix. I suppose another significant slight change is Rassie Erasmus coming back as the head coach. For the last 4 years, he'd been in that kind of director of rugby role. He's coming back to being the head coach. But you've got a lot of continuity in it there still. Even though you've lost Nienaber, you've lost Jones, you've got Mzwandile Stick, Deon Davids, as well as a number of other guys who are still there, part of that programme. So I like the balance they've got between the assistant coaches that have been there before, that understand what has made this team successful, understand how Rassie Erasmus works and the strengths of this playing group. And then you've got people coming in with an outside perspective as well to be a part of that. In terms of Gerry Flannery, obviously former Ireland hooker, he's coming across from Harlequins, where he has been one of the assistant coaches there for 3 or 4 years now. He was part of the coaching staff that saw them win the Premiership, that remarkable run to the Premiership kind of during COVID time. And then Tony Brown from the Highlanders, former Kiwi, former fly half. So two guys with quite different experiences also coming into that coaching group. So it's quite an interesting mix, I suppose. One thing I do wonder, whether Flannery is going to be someone that keeps quite a keen eye on a lot of the players that play in the Northern Hemisphere, or specifically in the Premiership and URC, in a similar way to what Felix Jones did, or whether he's more based in South Africa. I think that'll be interesting as well. The one other thing actually to mention is Duane Vermeulen, retired obviously, and he is involved with the pathways for the Boks. I mean, can you imagine that as like an under 18 or whatever coming through? You've got Duane Vermeulen as one of your coaches, or one of the people that are there in your setup. It makes a lot of sense for that as an appointment. But overall for the Springboks, I know it's early days, we're in February, it's not like here in the Northern Hemisphere where we're right into our season now of the Six Nations. It's the slow burn to building up to later in the year. But what a season ahead for the Springboks. So they've got that test series against Ireland, which will be unbelievable. I think most likely Ireland go on and win another Grand Slam or win this Six Nations. So just the hype around that series against the world champions, against the team that are still playing great stuff, that will be an awesome occasion. I cannot wait for that. Plus then that match against Portugal. I think we're all intrigued to see how Portugal develop over the next few years. Part of that is getting games against the top sides. I know there's got a Portugal A team against England A, so it's not quite that, but to have fully fledged international against Portugal. And then of course, the Rugby Championship, that rivalry with the All Blacks, repeat of the World Cup final. That is just such a tantalising prospect, that whole season for the Springboks, that I think it's going to be really, really exciting. So how do you see this coaching group work? As I say, I like the balance it has to it. I like the fact that there's still people who understand that setup, plus you've got new faces coming in. And one thing you would say as well is actually, it's a coaching group that over the last 4 to 8 years have worked so well together, from Nienaber to Stick to whoever ends up doing the press conference. You feel like they have such a good understanding of all of their roles in that system, that I suppose it's Gerry Flannery and Tony Brown coming in. How do they get the best out of them? How do they fit in? But I'd back them to be able to do that. The one other change, I think, with Rassie no longer being in the director of rugby kind of role, him changing back to head coach, as far as I understand it, and from what I can see, it essentially means he will have a more hands-on approach at training, rather than being the head of the whole kind of strategic vision for the team. He's more hands-on on a day-to-day basis on the training pitch. I think that's kind of the understanding, but he was still so influential even when Nianaba was the head coach. So I don't think it'll make a huge difference really. And then the one other thing to mention is what the Springboks do this year, or over the next few years, I suppose. I expect that they will have a very similar approach to what they did transitioning from 2019 into 2023, in that they will blood youngsters, they will rotate their team, they will get people experience, whilst also having players like Kurtley Aronser, Kanan Moody, there'll be other guys as well, but that have come into that team, they will gain more caps. They will rotate the team, they will build experience, and they will build depth. It was something Erasmus actually in the press release that the Springboks put out yesterday mentioned in terms of that was a focus for them, rotating their team, getting experience to build in 4 years' time. And also, of course, still winning in the here and now. You feel like with the Boks, they landed on a recipe of how to best utilise a 4-year cycle. That was one of the things on the back of the World Cup. One of my big takeaways almost was they had nailed the best way for them to use a 4-year cycle, in that they still won a lot of their big games. I know they would have liked to maybe win a Rugby Championship more than they did, but they won the Lions series, they won the Test series against Wales even though they rotated, but they were still able to rotate their team, bring players in, get guys experience. And I think we'll see much the same. I think there are challenges for that team. I've done a video previously on the channel about where the Springboks go in 2024, so go and seek that out if you haven't watched it already, which goes into a bit more depth of the different playing positions, the age profile of some of that squad. There aren't players that are immediately going to drop out, but I think over the next 4 years there probably will. But as I say in the video, I think the Boks have the strength and depth to be able to transition players in. That's always going to be a huge strength of theirs. So I'll leave it there. Let me know what you make of this coaching team. Jerry Flannery in particular, I suppose I've seen more of Jerry Flannery in terms of a coach because he's obviously been coaching in the Premiership. That's a really, really interesting appointment, being in charge of the defence, which has been such a strength of the Boks over the last few years. So where they go from here, how they develop, I think is really exciting. The fixtures they have this year are absolutely blockbuster, but plenty of challenges as well. I look forward to reading your comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you in the next one.